All right, Joey, take it away, the blueprint.
Yeah, well, it's just another team that we're trying to figure out where they're at and how good they are, and that is Carlton. There's a fascination, particularly with me, about the Blues, and are they close to starting to get on a roll, or are they just average? And it's really interesting because I spoke on Sunday, we did the first crack, and I said, I'm not sure about the Blues anymore. You said, don't jump off. So I thought I'd take a deep dive. And I started with, funny you mentioned the Brisbane Lions, I was starting with the profile of Brisbane at round 10 last year. So if you remember last year, Brisbane were 12th on the ladder. They were 4.5 wins, and everyone was concerned about Brisbane. And that was the ladder position. But the Brisbane profile was in really healthy shape, three quarters of their profile. So their defensive profile was really strong. They were one of the hardest teams to score against in the competition at round 10 last year, despite where they were in the ladder. Carlton are very, very similar. They are one of the hardest teams in the competition to move the ball against and to score against. Then you look at the ball movement. And Brisbane, this was still a strength of theirs. Even though they weren't scoring and they weren't winning, they were able to move the ball from D50 to inside 50, and they were able to deny the opposition moving the ball. Carlton are very strong in that facet of the game too. Their ball movement is not an issue. They are one of the quicker teams at moving the footy, but it's getting to the part of the ground that we'll get to in a minute. And then you take a look at the forward half game, which is, we know it's critical to being able to be a successful team. Brisbane, that was their strength. Even though they weren't winning at round 10, they were still the best in the competition, and Carlton are doing that really well. And then time in front. So Brisbane were 12th on the ladder, but they were 4th for time in front. So then all of a sudden, this is the reason why they went on to win 14 of their next 16 games. Carlton have been in front, the 4th most of any team. There's a lot of talk about their first half and what they do in the second half. Again, you can look at that two ways. Yeah. Glass half full or glass
You're
half...
making the Blues fans smile.
So
they're smiling.
That's the positives, John.
There's always a downside.
Now let's take a look at where they are breaking down, because it is clear as day what it is, and that is their connection going inside 50. And that was the problem for Brisbane Lions at the same time of the year. So Brisbane Lions numbers there were actually worse the round before. They were down near Carlton's numbers, but they'd played Richmond at round 10, won by 100 points. So that started to prop up their points for and their score per inside 50. But it was a real issue, just like Carlton's is. Now the question is, we know Brisbane were able to turn it around, but they have quality and class in their forward half of the ground. Do Carlton have the same talent, or can they correct it? Because we now go to the vision, and these are just 3 clips that I plucked, and could have plucked many more from the game against the Sydney Swans to have a look at where it is breaking down and why they are 18th in the comp for scoring inside 50. So they get the ball just over halfway here. So it's only just over the centre circle. You can look to change angles and find another entry, but they look up and long, and they see this. They think they see Harry Mackay in a 1v1. But if you're trying to kick the ball 60 metres long and high into a forward 50, by the time the ball gets there, Kingy, there's players everywhere. So again, a little short kick, change of angles, get it into the launch pad, you get a much better entry. But again, they are so impatient. They look up, they see Mackay, and they think, I've got to get into him. We've got Mackay and Curnow. By the time you kick a 55-metre ball in, teams pick it off. Again, another example, they can change angles. You can look to come through the corridor. No, they want to go and get it in. But it's straight lines. It's impatient, and it's allowing the opposition to come across and intercept the ball.
20 inside 50s in the first quarter last week, and they don't get the reward.
They don't get bang for buck.
Yeah.
So I think they need to just be a little bit more patient. They need to have better decision-making, and they need to think about getting it to the launch pad closer to the 50 and then getting a quality entry rather than just thinking we've got to get it in because it's not working for them. And if they can fix up that phase of the game, then the rest of their game is in really good shape and they might be able to get on a roll. Now, I'm not saying they're going to do Brisbane and win 14 of the next 16 and win the flag.
You're saying Brisbane,
like
Carlton win it.
That's what that sounds like.
I'm ringing Bernie Vince on the way.
But Carlton can start to get on a roll, all right? So that is what could happen if they can correct that phase of the game.
Can they do it this season?
Well, this is the problem.
Or is it a growth over a couple of years?
Now you look at the talent. So there have been 276 players in the competition that have had 10 kicks or more going inside 50. These are the kick rating numbers of those 276 players. So Carlton ranked clearly 18th for kick rating going inside 50. They're double the team that is 17th when you look at percentages. And here are the names and where they sit in the competition out of the 276, because it makes for ugly reading. There are a lot of Blues that are really struggling with it. So Harry Mackay is the worst kick inside 50 in the whole competition. He's going at minus 40% what is expected of AFL average. Charlie Curnow, another one. And you can see the names there. So the question is, do they have the quality, Kingy, to be able to correct these issues? Or is it a team directive to try and get in long and direct? Or can they train it, assess it, find the better options and fix this facet of the game?
We've had this discussion about Carlton. We call it the abattoir.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I know.
Royal Park abattoir. Yeah. But it's an easy fix, really.
Yes.
It's just decision-making, but you've got to train it. Yeah. And how many hours do you need before these guys can correct? It's almost like another pre-season.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they got another pre-season.
They don't have time.
They're cherry ripe to their age profile.
There's a fair list of players there, though. They're quality players that we expect to rise from, really, don't we?
Yeah, but it's just their connection going forward. So do you think you can fix it in season, Johnny? Do you think that phase of the game Carlton can correct? Because most other facets are actually their pressure, their contest, all the numbers we showed.
You can change your ball movement.
Yeah.
You can definitely change your ball movement. I think this week against GWS is a perfect example of that. If they go long, Taylor's just going to be able to work this. Himmelberg will work with him and Buckley as well. So this is the perfect round to try something a little bit different at Marvel Stadium, pure conditions, to use the ball better.
If they win this one, they get on a run.
They get a good run. That's what I mean. They could start getting on a roll. So we're just going to give them one more chance. I've been bullish on them. They frustrated me a few times where I've showed the numbers. I think it was before the Collingwood game and a couple of weeks ago. But maybe this is the time.
So of that, if they get the 4... They get to 8 wins, so then they've got to get 5 from 9. 13's the number, I think, to get into the 8. So 5 from 9. 3 of those wins is 100% achievable, right? So then they go to part of the season where it's 6 from 9.
The back end
in
of the
the back end of the year. It's alive for the Blues if they get this part of their season right.
In Voss, we trust. I'm sticking fat. Yeah, I know it's a tough one. But it can be corrected by a couple of star factor players lighting up. If Harry and Charlie can go crazy, things change.
David, what are you worried about?
Oh, thank you, Brad Ashley Johnson. It's calling me David. Very, very official tonight.
You know my middle name.
I know all your details. I'm a scam artist in a private life. I just want to have a look at the Lions because they started the year not playing their best football but stacking the wins. 5 from 5. In the last 5 rounds, they've gone 2.5, 2.5. And there's a few things creeping into their profile that is different to last year. Now, you can be glass half full or glass half empty. You pick which way you want to look at this review or this assessment of where they're at. But right now, they've lost a few things in their game. They've lost their ability to punish, which is one of the great indicators of this football club, because last year they were awesome. On intercept, they get on the scoreboard better than any other team. That's now on decline. That sits around 5. So we're only talking about the last 5 games that they've played. That's dropped to 8th. It doesn't look like a massive drop, but when that's your point of difference, I think it is a concern. And you go to intercept from, you go from denying the opposition the same. So how are you defensively at holding up? Well, of course, they were number 1 ranked last year, and that's slipped down to mid-table or just below as well. So it makes you think, OK, they've been able to stack 7.5 of 10. Terrific. But I'd still think it'd be a stone in Chris Fagan's shoe of what's happening right now. Why can't we get this together? We've got some good names back in. We've got a midfield now that we've been waiting for to click for a while. Still got star factor for. I understand Joe's not there. And in that forward 50, it has made a difference. Their attack, has gone from 97 points a week in the first half a dozen weeks down to 79. So they've lost 3 goals. Last year, their big contested possession winner was Joe in that forward 50. He was top 6 or 7 in the competition. So we knew that'd have an impact on their forward 50 work, their ability to win ball. But I just think their ability to win contests in the forward half, last year, so Brisbane's forwards versus opposition backs. So usually there's an out number. So you don't necessarily win this stat, but it's minimising or the damage, if you like. So last year they were the best in the competition at winning contests in the forward half. Right now, they're 4th worst. So there are some things creeping in. So I just want to put it on the radar. Clearly they know all these things. The question I want to ask is, when do we worry about Brisbane, or aren't we worried about Brisbane?
I'm not worried yet because 2 things. We have seen them be able to turn their profile around, like last year where they were struggling, particularly with their offensive side of things. And secondly, I don't necessarily think this is a system or a team. I think there's individuals that are down on form that I think are just going through a bit of a malaise that might just need a bit of a rocket. They've won the premiership. They're all coming off good years.
Hangover, you think?
There's not so much a hangover, but just not quite as edgy and playing with the same intensity and venom. And a few of them are in the forward half of the ground, and I'll get to one later, but I think there's a few forwards and a couple of their senior players that have got another gear to go to. And I think maybe once we get towards the back end of the year and they can smell September, they might still find their best.
So they've banked the wins. You've said that. So therefore, is it more now around? Do you think they can fix some of these issues that you're discussing?
Well, I'm just looking at the run upcoming, and there's challenge. There's challenge in this run. You got Hawthorn away, Essendon at home, Adelaide away, Giants at home, Geelong away.
Solid run.
It's a solid run. So we know they're good enough, right? They're the premiers for a reason. So we're not concerned about the stocks they've got. But there are small margins in the AFL, and you wouldn't want to just get on a 50-50 or worse slide for a little while in the next 5 to 6 weeks, because then again they'll have to come from outside of the top 4 to win it. Now, they did it last year. But, gee, it's a big ask.
History shows it gets harder once you've won one. The next year, I think the average drop-off's like sort of 4 or 5 spots on the ladder. That happens for a reason. It gets harder. Other teams improve. You have to try and go to another level. I think it is something we put on watch.
Well, the challenges are there, aren't they, King?
Yeah.
And that's the good thing about what we'll see from the Brisbane Lions coming up over the next month in particular, but for the remainder of the season. Joey, your turn. Let's go. Your first grade.
I'll just put one guy on the radar, and I just want to say welcome back. Kitty Corridor, we're calling him.
Yes.
Kitty Coleman. His first kick of the day, you had to see it to believe it. He's prepared to look inboard and bite off Corridor at all times, and I just love it. I think that, Zorko's made halfback his own, and if this guy can go with him with that Corridor attack, it'll correct pretty quick.
I love that, and I think what we'll see is we'll see it a little bit higher too, Kingy. Now, that's obviously a deep one, dangerous kick going back towards, back half of the centre circle. Once he's up a little bit higher and using that to change angles in particular, it's going to be pretty exciting to watch.
Welcome back, Kitty.
Love that. Love that.